بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, dear students. Welcome to another week where we cover another topic from Islamic Studies book 9, part 1. Today's topic will be a review of Tawheed al-Asma wa Sifat, part 1. And this is covered in Unit 5, Lesson 1. Okay, so we are doing a review of Unit 1, Lesson 1, and we're going to be covering some of the core fundamental concepts. On the right hand side, you can see this is a summary of what we covered in Unit 1, Lesson 1, and that this is also the essential concepts that you should know by now. And today we'll do a bit of a review. So the first thing that we are going to review is obviously the term itself, Tawheed al-Asma wa Sifat. So let's unpack this word first of all. So that, because it is quite a long word, Tawheed al-Asma wa Sifat. Let's break it down to its component parts. So the first word, the first part of the word, Tawheed. So very simply, what does Tawheed mean? In English, Tawheed means the oneness of Allah. To believe that Allah is one and without any partners. This is also known in English as monotheism. And what is the opposite of monotheism? It is, and you must have heard this word before, polytheism. And you should also know that the greatest sin one can do in Islam is to associate partners with Allah, to worship Allah and worship other partners alongside Allah as well. This is polytheism, and this is one of the greatest sins, and this is also where many past nations and people have fallen down. And the message of Islam came to correct people's corrupt belief in their belief in Allah. So people started straying from monotheism. They started deviating from monotheism, and to bring them back to monotheism, Allah sent messengers, Allah sent scriptures to teach them the importance of Tawheed. Right? So this is a very core concept. Tawheed is oneness of Allah. Now, Tawheed is a word and is a concept, but Tawheed covers a lot of details about our belief in Allah. Right? So Tawheed itself, means oneness of Allah, but this concept, it covers many details about our belief in Allah. And you might ask again, why does God want us to know what the correct way is to worship Allah? Again, we only have to look back in history. What has happened to people, right? They have fallen into the trap of polytheism. They have followed their desires. They deviated from worshipping the one and only Allah, right? Either through worshipping idols or worshipping their own desires. So this is why the concept of Tawheed is so important, and it has many details. The details that are under Tawheed can be described in 3 broad categories, right? The other 2 we're not going to cover here. The one category we are going to cover is known as Tawheed al-Asma wa Sifat. So again, let's break it down. Tawheed is monotheism. Al-Asma wa Sifat is the names and attributes. So joining them together, what does that mean? So we're talking about the belief in Allah, the oneness of Allah, related to the names and attributes of Allah. Now I want you to think about the names and attributes of Allah in the sense that we are trying to describe the nature and the essence of Allah. And so how are we doing it? We are doing that through the names and attributes of Allah, right? To describe His essence and His nature. But remember, and I covered this in detail in one of the past lessons, do we describe the nature of Allah through reason, or do we describe Allah, His essence, His nature, through revelation? What is the correct way? Again, people in the past used their reason to describe Allah, and in doing so, they developed corrupt beliefs, and they fell into kufr, into disbelief. The correct way to understand the essence of Allah is through revelation. So, we cannot use our reason to describe Allah. We have to use revelation. So this form of Tawheed, Tawheed al-Asma wa Sifat, states that Allah may only be described with the names and attributes of perfection which have been mentioned by Allah Azza wa Jal and His Messenger Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. This means that Muslims must affirm whatever names and attributes that Allah and His Messenger have affirmed. Similarly, Muslims must reject any attributes which describe Allah as being deficient or flawed. So Muslims affirm what Allah and His Messenger affirm and reject whatever Allah and His Messenger reject. That is quite simple. To summarize, that we can only describe Allah, His nature, His essence, through the names and attributes that He has affirmed or that have been mentioned by the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam in his hadith. But also, we must reject any attributes, right, which describe Allah as being deficient or flawed, or that Allah and His Messenger reject as well. So this is Tawheed al-Asma wa Sifat, and this is what it means. And the other point that we need to cover is the term Ahl-Sunnah wal Jama'ah. So who are the Ahl-Sunnah wal Jama'ah? So the way I want you to think about this is that there are a large number of Muslims spread across the world, and there are different interpretations of Islam. But of course, there can only be one correct interpretation of Islam, and that is the Islam that was understood and practiced by the Messenger of Allah and his companions and the Salafus Salih, the pious predecessors. So Ahl-Sunnah wal Jama'ah refers to the largest group of Muslims whose beliefs and understanding of Islam is in accordance with the Quran and Sunnah, as also was practiced by the noble companions and the pious predecessors. So this is who the Ahl-Sunnah wal Jama'ah are. Essentially, we are practicing Islam in the way that was practiced by the companions and the pious predecessors, according to the Quran and the Sunnah. Okay. So what is the belief of Ahl-Sunnah wal Jama'ah relating to Tawheed al-Asma wa Sifat? One of these is related to the names and attributes of Allah. Remember I said there are certain groups that have different beliefs when it comes to the names and attributes of Allah. So it is important that we have the correct understanding. The correct understanding is that, according to Ahl-Sunnah wal Jama'ah, is that Allah should only be described with the names and attributes of perfection which He has used to describe Himself in the Quran, or which His Messenger has used to describe Him in the Sunnah. So it is obligatory that Muslims affirm whatever He has affirmed for Himself, and similarly affirming the names and attributes which Allah has affirmed Himself in His book and the Sunnah of His Messenger in a manner that befits Him, without distorting or denying the meanings or asking or likening Him to His creation. So the first part was, obviously, I covered earlier. The second part is what we need to focus on. It is the belief of Ahl-Sunnah wal Jama'ah that when it comes to the names and attributes of Allah, specifically how they have been described in the Quran and in the Sunnah, that we describe it in a manner that befits Him, without distorting or denying the meanings or asking how or likening Him to His creation. Because remember, can we see, touch Allah? We cannot see, touch, feel Allah. We cannot, because He's outside, He's beyond our imagination. So when Allah describes Himself, when He affirms names and attributes for Himself, we cannot fully comprehend, what that actually means. We just know that those names and attributes are the most perfect names and attributes, are the highest form of those names and attributes. But we do not know what the details are, and to be honest, it does not affect our worship. It does not affect our practice of Islam. So we do not need to delve into it. We do not need to interpret it, like it into its creations, or even deny it. Okay, so this is the understanding of Allah when it comes to names and attributes of Allah. Okay, and the next part is Unit 1 and Lesson number 2. Unit 1, Lesson number 2, if you recall, covered the evidence for Tawheed, al-Asma wa Sifat. So what is the evidence that establishes that there is such a thing as monotheism related to Allah's names and attributes? Is this something that we have just developed by ourselves, or is there a basis for this in our authentic texts? And the answer is that the concept or the category of Tawheed, Tawheed al-Asma wa Sifat, monotheism, or believing in the oneness of Allah related to His names and attributes, is sourced from the Quran and the Sunnah, right? And I will give you some examples, right, from the Quran that speak about the names and attributes of Allah. And as a student, as someone who wants to draw closer to Allah, improve the relationship with Allah, it is a good idea, right, to memorize the names of Allah. There is even an authentic hadith that talks about the virtues of remembering the 99 names of Allah. Of course, these are just the names that we have knowledge about. There could be many more than that. But the study of the names and attributes of Allah is an act of virtue, and it also brings with it reward in this lifetime and the next. So I would encourage everyone to contemplate, to reflect, to memorize the names and attributes of Allah, and also use them in your daily supplication, your dua. So some examples of the verses in the Quran that speak about Tawheed al-Asma wa Sifat are, firstly, so Surah Al-Isra, verse 110, and again this is in your textbook. I want you to refer to this as well. You turn to page 7. And I'm going to recite the verse in Surah Al-Isra, verse 110. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل ادعوا الله أو ادعوا الرحمن أيما تدعوا فله الأسماء الحسنى. Say, call upon Allah or call upon the Most Merciful. See, there's two names here, Allah, and call upon the Most Merciful. قل ادعوا الله أو ادعوا الرحمن. Call on Allah or call upon Ar-Rahman, the Most Merciful. Whichever name you use, to Him belong the best of names. So when you call upon Allah, in your times of distress, in your times of difficulty, whether you call Allah by His name Allah, which encompasses all of His names, or you call Him by His attribute, right, of who is His name and also His attribute, that He is the Most Merciful, but He also spreads mercy, gives mercy to people. Whichever name you use, to Allah belong the best of names. Right? This is a clear-cut evidence from the Quran that Allah has names and attributes, and these names and attributes are lofty and they are perfect, and it's befitting Allah. Another statement from the Quran is in Surah Al-Taha, verse number 8. الله لا إله إلا هو له الأسماء الحسنى. Allah, there is no deity except Him. To Him belong the best of names. Another verse, Surah Al-A'raf, وَلِلَّهِ الْأَسْمَاءُ الْحُسْنَى فَادْعُوهُ بِهَا وَذَرُوا الَّذِينَ يُلْحِدُونَ فِي أَسْمَائِهِ سَيُجْزَوْنَ مَا كَانُوا يَعْمَلُونَ. And to Allah belong the best of names, so invoke Him by them, and abandon those who deviate concerning His names. They will be recompensed for what they used to do. Amazing verse. Here there's two lessons that we can derive from this verse. Is again, to Allah belong the best of names, but there are also people who deviate concerning this principle, that we should only call Allah, we should only describe Allah by the names and attributes that He has affirmed, but we should not deviate from this. If someone deviates from this, Allah has warned these people. This is a very evil thing to do, and they will be punished for that. Right? So we must stick to the belief of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala relating to the names and attributes of Allah, which is that we accept and submit to the names and attributes that are described in the Quran and Sunnah, and that we do not delve into them. What is the role of reason in belief in Tawheed al-Asma wa Sifat? And I've talked about this in the past lessons as well. Now, a very important principle to remember, and this principle is derived from the Quran, from the statement of Allah in Surah Ash-Shura, verse number 11, where Allah tells us, لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٌ وَهُوَ السَّمِيعُ الْبَصِيرُ. لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٌ وَهُوَ السَّمِيعُ الْبَصِيرُ. There is nothing like Him, and He is the all-hearing, all-seeing. So the role of reason is described here, right? That there is nothing like Him. If you solely rely on your cognitive functions, right, your perception, your mind, to describe Allah, you will not be able to. You will conclude the wrong conclusions. You will fall into error. So do not use your reason. Use what Allah has described in the Quran and Sunnah, and do not go further than that. Then accept and submit to the names and attributes that have been described in the Quran and the Sunnah. Do not distort them, do not deny them, do not try and explain them, do not liken them to any of His creation. But this is what the role of reason is, to accept and submit, and not to interpret and to liken to His creation. Okay, the last part of the review is the review of Unit 4, Lesson number 2. So here we're going to go through the methodology of Al-Sunnah wal Jama'ah related to the understanding of Muslims when it comes to the names and attributes of Allah. Now, recall I told you what Al-Sunnah wal Jama'ah means. Al-Sunnah wal Jama'ah refers to the group of Muslims whose belief and practice is in accordance to the Quran and Sunnah as understood by the noble companions, and that be pleased with them, and the Salafus, or the pious predecessors. Now, so what specifically were the beliefs regarding the beautiful names of Allah and the beautiful attributes of Allah? Regarding the beautiful names of Allah, the names of Allah that Allah has ascribed for Himself are the names that He has mentioned in the Quran and the authentic Sunnah of His Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Al-Sunnah wal Jama'ah believe in these names because Allah Azza wa Jal has used them to describe Himself. All of Allah's names are complete and perfect and contain nothing that might imply deficiency. Allah says in the Quran, وَلِلَّهِ الْأَسْمَاءُ الْحُسْنَى فَادْعُوهُ بِهَا وَذَرُوا الَّذِينَ يُلْحِدُونَ فِي أَسْمَائِهِ سَيُجْزَوْنَ مَا كَانُوا يَعْمَلُونَ. This is Surah Al-Araf again, and to Allah belong the best of names, so invoke Him by them, and then those who deviate concerning His names, they will be recompensed for what they used to do. So Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah affirm that Allah has names, just as they affirm that these names also refer to attributes which are linked to specific names. One of the names of Allah is Al-Alim, all-knowing. They ascribe this name to Allah because He Himself uses it in reference to Himself in His statement. قالوا سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. They said, exalted are you, we have no knowledge except what you have taught us. Indeed, you are the one who is the all-knowing, the all-wise. إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. عليم الحكيم, the all-knowing, the all-wise. So what this part is saying is that Allah has names, but He also has attributes. And the names also describe the attributes of Allah. In the case of Al-Alim, Allah's name is Al-Alim, but it's also His attribute, that the attribute of knowing everything. Right? So what do we believe regarding the attributes of Allah? The belief of Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah again is that we believe, we accept and submit every attribute that Allah Azza wa Jal or His Messenger has described Allah with. So these attributes, right? And again, do not get confused here, because the attributes are also names of Allah. But there are some names that describe Allah's attributes, Allah's qualities, right? So Allah is someone who is merciful, but that is also His name. Allah is someone who is all-seeing, that's His name, but He also has the attribute of seeing everything, of knowing everything. So don't get confused, it's just a finer point. Allah's names are also His attributes. They're not in all cases. So, but we also note that these attributes sound similar to the attributes that human beings might have. But again, remember the principle again. لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٌ وَهُوَ السَّمِيعُ الْبَصِيرُ. There is nothing like Him, and He is the all-hearing and all-seeing. So we should accept Him on face value, as Allah has described Him, without resorting to any type of distortion, denial, explanation as to how they are liking Him to anything in His creation. So these attributes, the names and attributes of Allah, are complete and they are perfect, right? But because Allah is beyond our imagination, our brain cannot fully comprehend Allah, then we do not know how these attributes specifically relate to Allah. We just accept them on face value. And this brings us to the end of this topic. Can you please now go to the end of this topic, page 54, and go through the questions at the back. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.